John 4, starting at 23. If you're there, say, yeah. All right. Here's what I love about John 4:23. It says, a time is coming and now has come. That means right now. That means we're living in it. We all agree in that. And now has come when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. And I love that in itself is incredible. But the second part is what always amazes me. It says that these are the worshipers that the Father seeks. That means no matter where you've been, no matter where you've been in the past or what you've been going through, the Lord is pursuing you. If you read this again, that these are the kind of worshipers that the Father seeks. He's seeking the worship that you come to give. And I've had people come up and they say, well, you know, Dan, I can't sing on key at all. I can't clap on beat. I'm the guy over there that everybody's looking at. They'll try to get away from because it throws them off. God looks directly at your heart. And He's desiring. Psalms 23:6, you don't have to turn it there. I'll just tell you. It says that the goodness and mercy of the Lord will chase after you all of your days. All of your days. Even in the midst of struggle, even in the midst of stupid decisions, the Lord is chasing after you. He's pursuing you every day. And it says you will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Well, here's what we're seeing. And I'm just going to be open with you. Is that okay? We're all over America right now. We just broke into the international traveling. And let me introduce my wife to you really quick. Everybody wave at Jackie. Say, hey, Jackie. Jackie and I had a vision to jump out and just pursue the heart of God. One of our scriptures we stand on is in Philemon. It talks about going in and refreshing the hearts of the saints. And that's our entire purpose. It's not to come in and entertain. It's not to come in and put on a show. There's a lot of people doing that kind of stuff, and that's just not our heart. I actually turned down a record deal a little over a year and a half ago that in the music business, everybody said, oh, that is the deal for you. It's great. It was like a 7-year, 5-album deal. It would have shipped thousands. But here's what they said. Now listen. They said, now, you're a good songwriter, you're a good singer, but would you consider doing something other than worship? See, that's my heart. Would you consider doing something other than worship? And I thought, you know, not that there's anything wrong with it, but I didn't want to write another song about Jonah and the whale and go in and entertain somebody. It's just not my heart. And then they said this. They told Jackie and I, they said, here's the deal. We're going to need you to play for at least 500 people. We're going to need you to demand at least $4,000. We're going to need you to do this and do this and do this. And all these demands. And I remember sitting there thinking that pretty much messes up about 90% of our schedule. Because we go in and do worship nights for groups your size. We go in and do worship nights at conferences. But then we also go in and do worship nights for 60 people at a little church that everybody's always overlooked. Because my heart is, the Lord is looking for someone willing. A pastor friend of mine told me this story, and it touched my heart. He said, I love your heart, Daniel, and I'll tell you why. You'll go anywhere God tells you to go. It doesn't matter how much it costs. It doesn't matter what country it's in. And he said, too many people, now listen to this, too many people have become complacent. They've become satisfied with where they're at. Or they put a limit on well, God, I want to be a missionary as long as it's not anywhere that I have to stay in a tent. But I want to be a missionary as long as I can stay at the nice hotels. And you'll box up God real quick because the Lord's looking for willing and obedient and humble and righteous and holy living vessels who will say, nah, I don't need a drink. I don't need to live loose. I need to rise up and be the man and women of God that He's called me to be. So this is what the pastor tells me. He says, I get an offer, and I let this pastor's he's a super cool guy, and he said, I get this offer from 2 different churches at the exact same time. I get an offer from a church of about 5,000 in Miami, right off the beach, guaranteed honorarium. And then I get a call from Durango, Colorado. Population like 11. No, of a church of about 35, 40. And he's praying, and he said to his wife, he said, well, honey, I'm pretty excited. We're going to Miami. We're going to take a couple days. And she was really excited, and the Lord stopped him right when he was telling her and said, no, you need to go to Durango. And he's like, Lord, You've ordained two things in the Bible, church and marriage, and I need to take care of my wife too. I need to go to Miami. This will be great. Plus the honorarium will be good for the ministry. And the Lord said, you need to go to Durango. I'm going to do something supernatural. So he gets in his car, and they drive to Durango, Colorado, and sure enough, there's like 35 people there. They paid him, I think, in like, I don't know, chicken or something. And he said, I'm preaching. And the whole time I'm preaching, I'm like, okay, Lord, I'm waiting on it. Where's the supernatural thing? And he said this lady on the front row just sitting off to the side was crippled. She'd been crippled for years and years and years, probably the last 15 years of her life. Arthritis had set in, and she was completely crippled, all hunched over. And the Lord said, I sent you here for her. So as he was preaching, see, again, the Lord's looking for someone willing. Someone willing. He doesn't need another Kenneth Copeland or Jesse Duplantis. Whatever he's called you to do, that's what he's called. He's set you apart, called and anointed you to rise up. So while he's preaching, he just walks over and just puts his hand on her shoulder while he's preaching. And he said within 2 minutes, he said, she sat up straight, and then she started stretching out, and all of a sudden she stood up and just started worshiping God, and the Lord healed her like that. Now that in itself is God's faithfulness. But listen to this. This touched my heart. I remember when he shared this with me, I just couldn't believe it. I was sitting there like, he said, I remember leaving. He said, they didn't even give me enough in my love offering to cover my expenses. And he said, I was okay with that because, I mean, my gosh, look what the Lord did. But listen to this. He says, I'm driving along. It's just me and God in my car. And I said, Lord, why did you send me here? And the Lord said, because you were the only one available. He says, I've been asking pastors to go to this church for years, but nobody's been willing. So our heart is, Lord, I never want to miss those opportunities. I just want to be willing. Because I think when you get to a place where you feel like you've arrived and you have a good message prepared, you might have a few successes, but the Lord never can use you in his perfect will like he wants to. Man, open up. I have a saying, and I tell the team this a lot. Open up and be mindful of God's agenda in your life every single day. Because worshiping the Lord in spirit and in truth is living a life of surrender. I believe it's living a life of thankfulness, and it's living a life of faith. Because see, God has never been and never will be moved by our needs. Can we agree on that? He never has been, but he is moved by our faith and our trust in him. So I get to a place where I'm reading this scripture, and it blows my mind. I come from a really solid family. My parents have been married for 36 years. My mom's here tonight. She's on the front row. And but the first 10 years of my parents' marriage, my dad was an alcoholic and a drug addict. But see, he got to a place where the Lord arrested him in the midst of that sin. And when the Lord touched him, he never had to go through dry out or rehab. He never had to go through anything. The Lord just touched him in that moment. Well, because he touched him, it broke that chain, that curse in our family's life, which enabled, obviously, us to get to a place where we're doing what we're doing. But I think about this. We don't deserve, and I think we've got to get to a place where we understand this too many times, and I'm just going to be real with you, if that's okay. Is that okay? We're seeing it all over America right now. We're seeing a bunch of almost, I don't want to say, I'll say complacent, very complacent people where they come into church because they know they can. And here in Tulsa, guys, you can go to a service every night of the week. And there's like church 2, 3, 4 in the afternoon, 1,500 and 1,000 different places. But see, you're set apart. You came here. This is where you're planted. Maybe you're a Bible student or whatever. But there's too many people that we're seeing coming in, and they're almost like, okay, God, I came, I showed up, so isn't that good enough? Instead of diving in, desiring it more than we desire our next breath. Instead of coming in and saying, oh, no, you don't understand. I got to get to the house of the Lord because that's where the Lord fills me up so I can reflect hope to somebody this week.